It's time for the Phil Ferguson Show.
Hello, everybody. This is Phil Ferguson, and you are listening to the Phil Ferguson Show. This is number 203. Got a lot of fun stuff for you today. And just as a quick reminder before I forget, next episode, yeah, that's safe because I may or may not get it in 7 days, but will be Barry Lynn, the executive director for Americans United for the Separation of Church and State. Whew, that was really difficult. Later today, we are going to have an interview with Cara Santa Maria. She has her own podcast called Talk Nerdy to Me, and she is one of the rogues on the Skeptics Guide to the Universe, and she also does news shows and actual TV appearances and things out in California. So listen to that. Looking forward to that. A couple things we've got coming up before that. We are going to talk about a very special investment program called the 26F. And we're going to talk about hedge funds a little bit and a bet that Warren Buffett made with a hedge fund manager. He offered to make a $1 million bet. Now, the total payout of the bet is $1 million, and him and whoever would agree to bet him put in enough money that it would become worth $1 million in 10 years. So this is a 10-year-long bet. It has now completed 9 years. And what Warren Buffett was talking about is that hedge funds are awful. I've done shows specific on this in the past, and like many topics, I'm sure I'll come around to it again in the future in detail. But a hedge fund promises you all kinds of cleverness and secret trades, and they can get in and out and buy things before you can. And they really, really know what they do and what they're doing. And you give them your money, and they invest it for you. Well, one of the problems I have inherently with virtually every hedge fund, and maybe there's some that I'm not aware of, you give them the money. It's kind of like the United States government has a separation of powers, or at least theoretically. And with the investment world, as an example, my company, Polaris Financial Planning, shameless self-promotional plug, I don't hold the money. That's held by a custodian, and I give the advice. With a hedge fund, often you give them the money, and they do with it what they want, and they give you the results. The other thing that hedge funds are notorious for is called 2 and 20. They charge you 2% per year for the management, and then they take 20% of the return. And if the market makes 10 and they make 20 every year, you would be out 20% of the 20, or 4%, plus another 2% for the management advice. You're out 6% out of your 20, but you made 14 and the market made 10. That's the pitch. Unfortunately, the data, and we have lots and lots of data on this, as a collective group, they underperform the market. It's an age-old story. We see this time and time again. It is so incredibly difficult to actually beat the market. It's tough to even match the market. So 9 years ago, Warren Buffett made this challenge, $1 million, and he got a taker. And they have put money down, and we're going to give you a little bit of update on the results. So let me go back to the beginning here real quick. Back in 2007, give or take, Warren Buffett made this bet, or made this offer. And it started on January 1st of 2008. And the person who picked up the bet with Buffett is with Protege Partners. It's a hedge fund company. And so they wanted to compare a basket of hedge funds against the market because they were so confident that hedge funds generally will beat the market, that they didn't even pick a specific hedge fund that one could game. They agreed to a basket of hedge funds. And in 2008, the market went down an awful lot. The calendar year, 37%. The basket of hedge funds only went down 24%. Now, does that mean that they were good? Does that mean that they got lucky? But this 10-year bet, the hedge funds had a huge start that first year. The unfortunate thing is every year since then, and I don't think there's an exception, the hedge funds have underperformed the market. So they outperformed the market by a good 13 percentage points when the market fell 37%. And this is just a side note, something I see all the time. People get investment ideas or suggestions, and they show, it's really common now to show a 10-year or 12-year history, and they've got to include that 2008, because whatever it is they're selling to you didn't suck in 08, whether it's bonds or something safe. And they'll show you that even after 10 years, this really safe investment has made about what the market's made, because they didn't lose 37%, which is the single worst one-year loss in the last 50 years. Does not mean that it will work in the future, and often they underperform every year except for that 1 year. So it's not a good long-term investment. It just, this curiosity of what happened in the past, they can show you this neat trend or this neat effect. And so by the end of 2015, and I'm looking at the Investopedia article, it is called Buffett's Bet with the Hedge Funds, Year 8. And I've tried to find an update to this article, and I haven't, so I had to do the update myself, and I'm going to give you that here in a minute. But I wanted to refer to this because part of science-based investing skeptically, is that you can go look this stuff up yourself. You don't have to rely on me. So you can go to Investopedia, like I said, and it shows after 8 years that the total return of Buffett's bet, which was the S&P 500, was 65.67%, and the Protégé Partners was 21.87%. So they're really far behind after 8 years. And so what I did was I grabbed the data. It is easily available for the 9th year from the S&P 500, which was, I think, 11.96. And I went to barclayhedge.com and found a basket of hedge funds, which is going to approximate the result that Protégé Partners would have from their basket of hedge funds. This may not be exact. If I find a better number, I'll let you know. But their return this year was 6.09. So the S&P 500 made almost 12, and hedge funds made 6 after expenses. So there you go. The lead, it continues to expand. There's only one more year left in this bet, and I just for fun did the math. The only way the hedge funds can pull it out is they have to beat the market by 45% next year. So even their amazing 13% market beating results in 2008 won't pull them out of the fire. They have to beat the market by 45%. And if this was a some kind of softball game, we'd have to apply the slaughter rule. It's just getting ridiculous. It's laughable. And once again, we have data showing that hedge funds as a group do not work. Maybe there is a hedge fund or two that have beaten the market over 10 years. The problem is you can only know that after it has done so. You have no way of knowing in advance. So without that magical hindsight, hedge funds, any hedge fund that you're going to find or put money in, probably is not going to beat the market. So that is our little segment on hedge funds. Now, the other thing that has come up is people have asked me about this thing called the 26F, and we're going to talk about that a little bit. Something I've mentioned in this show before is I don't know everything. I've been doing this for 21 years. I'm losing track now. But people ask questions, and this week I've got 2 different emails from people asking about 26F programs. And I have to admit, I really didn't know what they were talking about. And I'll have to also admit, I'm still not sure what they're talking about because most of it links back to one specific website. And this website is called Money Morning. Now, be advised, if you go there, you're going to get lots of pop-ups, and I can't vouch for its safety. So I'm not suggesting that you go there, but if you want to go and see the stuff that I've looked at, that's where you can go. And it talks about well, first of all, they warn about the Department of Labor's new controversial rule. Okay, it is controversial because some people want to continue to be able to rip you off without disclosing it. Other people think it's a good idea that consumers are protected via regulation. But again, if you hate regulation, it's caveat emptor. Let the buyer beware, and if you get ripped off, it's your problem, not anyone else's. They also call this thing, they said that the Department of Labor rule is going to create a retirement blackout. I don't even know what that's supposed to mean, other than it sounds kind of scary. I'm going to black you out. I'm going to make it so you can't retire. I don't know what that means. I've never seen this anywhere else. I hope I don't see it anymore because it doesn't provide any valuable information. It's scary word soup. So it also talks about you can make $68,000 a year. I don't know how. It also talks about all the different ways that the government is trying to stop you from having access to this. So I'm still not 100% sure. I Googled around a lot, and almost everything refers back to this Money Morning blog. And there's multiple other pages that look like they're really quick and easy WordPress sites, and they all link back to Money Morning. And if you go to this page, you can click in it and you can see a video, which I haven't done. And I think the video just gives you more information about why you need to get more information. And the ultimate result is they want you to subscribe to their newsletter. And it's $80 a year, and they're going to tell you how to do this. But it is filled with these amazing claims. And I found a really nice review of this from a website called Stock Gumshoe. And so with the idea of not needing to reinvent the wheel, I didn't go through all of the details because this person did. It is amazing. It's called stockgumshoe.com, and the title of the post is Explaining 26F Programs and the Retirement Blackout on April 10th, teased by Keith Fitzgerald. And it's Fitz-Gerald as one joined last name, Keith Fitzgerald. Everything I saw has this guy on it. He's some kind of financial guru, self-proclaimed guru. It's like Trump saying he knows more than the generals, I think. But this post at Stock Gumshoe was quite humorous, and it pointed out things that are in the video, which is how I know it's in it, and or on the website, and it has claims like this. On April 10th, the Department of Labor will execute a controversial plan. It says that CNBC warns that this will be a major force of change on American retirement planning. The Wall Street Journal is reporting that it could cost savers $80 billion, and time is running out to prepare for the aftermath. So real high-level kind of scare tactics that the end is near, the sky is falling. It goes on and it says 26F programs allow people to enroll with one small investment stake, and they give investors the opportunity to earn aggressive monthly income combined with a huge lump sum payout. You could get paid $2,000, $5,000, or even more every month for the rest of your life and still grab six figures in one shot. On top of that, the 26F programs can operate as 100% legal tax havens. So the best I can gather from this is that the 26F may refer to, I hate the phrase obscure because any tax code is just as public as any other tax code, but it refers to a tax code that talks about life insurance policies. So I'm thinking that once you pay them the $80, they'll tell you how to do this, and you set up a life insurance policy that you can then, inside of it, borrow money and invest and then pay back yourself the interest. So you're borrowing money from yourself, paying interest to yourself to do stock trades, and then they'll tell you what stock trades to do to make the most with the money that's your money. It's a very weird cloak and dagger kind of way of getting about it, and it offends my senses as a skeptic. The stock gumshoe goes on and talks about an example that this website, this video proposes, and the guy's name is Roy Nair, and it talks about, he's just an average working guy, and he saved more than $1 million for retirement. And how did he do it? Well, we'll tell you how. He was only kicking in $300 a month in this special magical 26F program, and now he has a 7-figure net worth, and it's thanks to the 26F, and he lives frugally, blah, 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 blah. So they talk about all these things that this alleged Roy did. Well, the stock gumshoe went and found the story, and it's actually a story published on CNN Dream Retirement segments of a Roy Nash. So they just changed the guy's last name, but apparently left every other thing in its place. And it talks about this guy that did become a millionaire because he was saving a large chunk of his money every year, 10 to 15%, in a 401k, investing in mutual funds and index funds, and did that year after year after year, and then also put $300 a month into a insurance product. And so the $300 a month didn't make him a lot of money, but he did actually use one of these types of products. But the bulk of his money came from good old-fashioned saving and the good old-fashioned waiting. It takes time to make a lot of money. So the story goes on with a couple of other examples, which I won't bore you with, which are pretty much the same kind of thing, where you have a misrepresentation of facts, of a story that was published somewhere else, and the stock gumshoe was able to go find them, which is pretty cool. So, if you want to read all the details about that, check it out. So I don't have any real, actual, factual information about what a 26F program is, because I've never heard of one before today, and I couldn't find very specific answers. So I am going to apply my rule, KISS, keep it simple, silly. And this is not simple. This is complicated. It's spammy, and it's elusive, and it's hidden. And therefore, it breaks another one of my rules, is that if I don't understand it, I'm not going to invest in it. So if it's going to be cloak and dagger, I'm not interested. I have a way to make money. You have a way to make money in plain old-fashioned U.S. stocks, international stocks, different types of bonds. You don't have to get wildly creative, but what you do need to do, and it's step one of my program, my philosophy of how to money, it's so simple. It's painful to do, but you must spend less than you make. The next thing is reasonable, balanced investments, and the third thing is simply time. It takes time. So if someone comes to you and starts recommending 26F as a program, see if you can get more details, more specifics. See if they give you something in print, a legal disclosure document. Send it to me. You can use my email, phil@polarisfinancialplanning.com, and maybe I can give a correction or an update. Maybe I missed something. But until I learn something new, 26F sounds scammy to me, and I'm not interested in doing it. So we're going to take a little break, and then we're going to talk to Cara Santa Maria.
I say that homosexuality is not just a form of sex, it's a form of love, and it deserves our respect for that reason. That when my children were young, I'd have been proud to have Stephen as their babysitter, and I'd told them they were lucky. And if anyone came to my door as a babysitter wearing holy orders, I'd call first a cab and then the police.
All right, everybody, welcome back. This is Phil Ferguson, and of course, this is the Phil Ferguson Show. With me, I have another podcaster, someone who's way more famous than me, Cara Santa Maria. How are you?
I'm good. I'm not way more famous than you, though.
Oh, you are way more famous than me. And you're not really famous, but compared to me, you're like internet famous. Or podcast famous.
Podcast famous. Science famous.
Science famous.
Which is like so not famous at all.
Well, it was funny. We for the listeners, we're going to back up a little bit. But in the pre-show, which doesn't really exist, but I like saying that sound of that. In the pre-show, I was telling Cara the basic rules for the show, and one is I expect shameless self-promotion from the people I interview, and Cara said, not a fucking problem. And then I said, oh, by the way, you can swear, and I already knew that wasn't going to be a problem. And then the other thing is, in general, we don't talk bad about people. And she said, how about Trump? And I said, okay, we can talk about Trump. I don't want it to be yet another Trump episode, but he still exists. And Cara, I forgot to tell you, I have a standing rule, and I haven't mentioned this for a few episodes. I've been doing it for a few months now, and it's gone very well. Unlike the Skeptics Guide to the Universe in your show, which is more science-y stuff, this show specifically is in your face against religion.
Okay, cool.
And so, there's this thought about, well, I don't talk about anybody who's not there. And at some point, someone said, well, Jesus is everywhere, so can we talk about him? And I said, you know what? I'm going to take that a step further. And for the regular listeners, they already know this, but if someone's new, we have an open mic policy for Jesus.
Good to know.
And if we happen to get into religion, which we don't have to, but if we do, if we say anything wrong about Christianity, since Jesus is everywhere, and I have this microphone over here that's on and open, and he can just say anything anytime to correct us.
Okay, good to know.
So without correction, it's assumed that you and I are both correct.
Okay, I like that. And we could probably say anything we want about God because God doesn't exist.
Right, and he is also everywhere. But I mean, I said Jesus
and nowhere.
Because there's the Trinity thing.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Well, not in the religion I was raised in, but yes.
Which one was that?
Mormonism.
I was going to say, were you a foreman? I already had a foreman on a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, I'm a foreman. And so the Trinity is a little complicated. They're all three separate beings in their view.
And so Mormons, they have their whole other planet thing going, don't they?
Well, yeah, if you're a dude, I don't get that shit.
Well, yeah, sure you do. You get a planet.
Mm-mm.
Well, I mean, it's not yours, but your master gets a planet, and you get to
live
there.
There you go. I get to serve my man on a planet.
That's right. And you get to be like a queen bee without the power, pumping out children.
Yeah, I don't know if you still have children in the afterlife, according to their lore. I think you just have the children you had.
I thought that was,
I don't know.
I thought that was the purpose, that the dude, like you said, the dude gets a planet, and then all these wives, and they're supposed to populate that new planet.
And there's only one wife.
What are you talking about?
I'm pretty sure they changed all of the polygamy stuff, like once it was deemed illegal. I don't know about it in the afterlife. You know what? Here's the thing. I left the church when I was 14.
I was going to say,
never
when did you leave? It must have been a while.
Well, I was never married in the temple. So there's a big difference between whether or not you get all of these sacraments, like whether or not you go through and you learn all the ordinances. These are all like secret special things that you only get to know and get to be engaged in if you get married in the temple. But I left the church when I was 14, so I didn't go on a mission. I didn't get married in the temple.
I do want to talk about that, but my understanding, I've never been a Mormon, so disclaimer, you only get one terrestrial wife, but you have to have at least 3 celestial wives to enter the next level or get a planet. But then there's an unlimited number of celestial wives that you can have.
Oh, God, that kind of makes sense.
Yeah, in a really sick way that I want to comply with the law so the U.S. government doesn't invade my territory kind of way. Sure.
Yeah, well, and that's really what they have, a rich history of, like, if you're not kind of worshiping God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit, or I guess God, they really just worship God. But if you're not, like, really focused on kind of having that, like being beholden to your religious leaders, like next in line is your political leader. Like there's a strong, intense, long tradition in the LDS faith of patriotism. And so whenever like the church and state are at odds, they do whatever they can to kind of reconcile that cleanly, which is obviously why as soon as it was against the law to kind of be polygamous, they sort of were like, oh, we just don't do that anymore. Like, who cares that it was,
Yeah, just rewrote it. But it did take them...
Exactly. Who cares that, like, God told us to?
It did take them until the 70s to change the book to officially recognize people with dark skin as full-fledged humans, I think, or give them rights or something.
To give them, the power of the priesthood and all of that. But I think to even just let them in the church was pretty late, which is insane. Or maybe they could let them in, but they couldn't hold the priesthood. But women still can't hold priesthood.
Well, duh.
Yeah.
That's
like
goes without
such a
saying, doesn't it?
truism
I mean, that's...
of Christianity in general.
Yeah.
It's so much misogynistic.
Why aren't there, like, some countries that have women that run religions and keep the men oppressed? Why is that?
Who?
No, I mean, why isn't there one?
Why isn't there one? Because women are physically less capable of violently overtaking men.
You think it comes down? It's that simple?
Absolutely. I think it's very lizard brain. I think it comes down to a historical, like a long-standing history of violence and oppression. And it was much easier to treat women as property.
I thought of one.
What?
And you're right. The women are stronger. It's I can't remember. It's where Wonder Woman came from. All the women were in charge there, weren't they?
There are cultures where women are respected, obviously much more, where like they are the matriarch. There are some kind of African societies where the matriarch is really, really respected, but they're still not matriarchal societies in that it's still not women in all of the governmental roles. Like that's where we don't really have a history.
Wow, I did not expect us to go down this path, That's what happens when you have no plan.
I like it when we have no plan.
That's just so my listeners know.
So it's 12:14 in Los Angeles right now. It's just afternoon. And when we first started chatting before we started recording, you were like, you're going to be more talkative when we go live on the show. And I was like, no, I'm only going to give you one-word answers. But you probably can recognize in my voice, maybe you can't, but I literally woke up like 10 minutes before
I was
going
to say, and what is the temperature? What is the high there today?
It's a little cool.
Yeah, what is a little
in
cool,
LA
like 72?
Week. Does that make you laugh? The high is 63.
Oh, damn, that is chilly.
Yeah, and
For
yesterday
you.
It was even colder. It was like the high was in the 50s. But I think it'll be back into the 70s by Sunday.
Well, we have and actually I'm very happy about it. We have a 5-day streak here where the temperature will not go above 32.
Oh, you like that?
Well, no, I quite dislike it, but I'm happy.
Okay.
I'm happy
like,
this time because our trash pickup day is Monday. And Monday afternoon, after they had picked up the trash, we found out that the refrigerator in our garage and the freezer attached to it died.
But it's okay.
And we had 10 pounds of meat that had thawed out.
Oh, no.
And started to go bad. So I was very happy when the temperature dropped below 32 because I could just put it in trash bags, clean the freezer out, put it in the trash, which I could leave outside so it doesn't smell up the garage.
Yeah,
and it
and
freezes
it'll just
solid,
freeze
and
again.
the animals can't smell it.
Yeah, well, and you can't smell it.
Yeah. Well, outside I'm okay, but I just didn't want a fox or a coyote or somebody to rip open our can and just spread stuff all over the property.
Yeah.
So you said you left the organization of Mormons at 14. Why? Why did you get out? Why didn't you stay?
I don't believe in God.
Well, that's one of those one short word answers.
No, really, it was that simple. So I was raised in the church. I was born in the church. My parents were not born in the church. They converted together. My dad's like of Italian origin. My mom's Puerto Rican. So they were both raised Roman Catholic. They converted together after they were married, and they had my older sister and myself, and we were born in the church. It's kind of all we ever knew. I was baptized when I was 8 years old, like every other Mormon child. And I don't know if I ever really believed in any of it. I think I was just kind of a good kid, and tried like many people, when you're that young and you're getting baptized or you're focused on, going to classes. Oh gosh, I have to sneeze. Hang on.
Yeah. You going to be okay?
Yes, I'm back. Oh, good. Now I can think again. I was just thinking about how to suppress that sneeze. So, just like any other Mormon kid, or when you go up in front of the congregation to bear your testimony, as they call it, on the first Sunday of every month, you don't actually bear your testimony. You don't have a testimony. You don't actually know what you're thinking. You're trying to believe in God. And so, I was a pretty precocious kid. I was really academically inclined, and I read a lot of books, and I started to question. It's very hard for me to pinpoint when I was starting to become more aware of the fact that it felt like I was lying to myself and that I was, put in an uncomfortable position because I didn't really believe. But by the time I was 14, it was definitely cemented. I spoke to my father about it, asked him what I should do, asked him if we could talk about it, and he was pretty hard-lined at the time. He told me, I have a moral obligation to force you to go to church until you're 18, as long as you live under my roof. And my parents were long divorced at that point, and so I was kind of like, well, I guess I don't have to still come to your house. We had joint custody. I was majority of the time with my mom anyway, but kind of the agreement was that I would go to church with my dad every Sunday, and in addition to I don't remember, every other weekend and 2 weeks in the summer or something that I spent at his house. By then I had 2 new siblings too. My dad had remarried and she had adopted children. So, he told me I have a moral obligation to God to force you to go to church. I told him I think I'm of an age of consent, and if we went to a courthouse, I'm sure they would rule that I can stay with whomever I want to stay with. It was kind of crap. It was, sort of an unfair choice to put on a child, I think.
I think so.
And so, but ultimately, it really was for me, I think, a coming out experience. I really felt like I was living a lie. I don't think that it was psychologically healthy at that point for me to continue pretending. It's not like a lot of religions where you just go on Sunday and kind of smile and then walk away. Like, it's all encompassing when you're LDS. It's every morning before school you go to seminary. Every Wednesday you spend hours at youth group. Every Monday you do family home evening. Every Sunday you spend, church is 3 hours long on Sundays. It's a lifestyle, and it was a lie. So I did. I left the church, and it caused a big rift between myself and my father for many, many, many years. We have a very good relationship now. He was actually just in town last night for a business trip, and he crashed in our spare bedroom at our house, and we went to a diner and had a meal together, and it was quite nice. But definitely when I was young, it was a tense relationship.
And did you tell him when he stayed that he had to participate in sacrificing a child?
No, I did not. I try not to be overtly blasphemous in his presence. I'm not really sure what that would accomplish with our relationship. And he actually, as he's gotten much, much older, I found that he's quite respectful about not being overtly religious in my presence. It used to be that, you pray before every meal, and you just kind of wear it on your sleeve really heavily. But he didn't pray before dinner last night, and he never really talks about religion around me anymore. So I appreciated that. We didn't even talk politics because, he's Southern, he's Bible Belt. So he's... And
I'm sure he voted for Romney like a good little
He
Mormon.
Absolutely voted for Romney, and he was a Trump voter. I'm not sure if he is a Trump supporter. I think that he's very... Again, it's kind of the line of the Mormon Church that you really respect the office. And so he's very offended when people... And I kind of am to some extent, too, when people have like the not my president mantra.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, sorry, he is your president. Like, I know you didn't vote for him, and it's fine if you want to say, I didn't vote for this guy, but like, he is the president. And so it's sort of respect the office regardless of who's in it. And so he's definitely still in wait and see mode. I was in wait and see mode prior to the inauguration. Now I'm fully in, oh my God, what are we going to do? What are we going to do mode? Because I think even just in 5 days or 6 days or however, 7 days now, there's good evidence to to worry us. But I think he's probably just not, my father's probably just not as entrenched in following all of the nuances of the news and things like that.
And it's interesting because the listeners are probably going to hear this 2 or 3 weeks into Trump's reign. So you said 5 or 7 days or whatever.
Yeah, it's January 27th right now that we're recording this.
Yeah, and I'm confident, though, it's not really going to change.
No, I don't think 2 weeks from now it's going to be like, oh man, we should have just given him a chance.
Yeah.
Like, look at all the great progressive things he's
Cara
doing.
was so wrong. They did replace Obamacare after they repealed it.
I know, and it was a better plan.
Well, it's funny because one of the things that the biggest change in my life so far has been the Obamacare rule or the possibility that it will go away, because while I do make enough for both my wife and I to live on, owning your own little small business, and you may have had experience with this, it's really difficult to get insurance.
Oh, yeah, it's nearly impossible. It's, I was on Obamacare as a freelancer when I first started. I'm very lucky right now that I have been a member of SAG-AFTRA for long enough, and I get enough hours doing the television work that I do, that one of the perks of the SAG union is that you get health care. And their healthcare is actually really good, way better than what I had when I was on like Blue Shield through Obamacare. So that's great. But, you and I are probably in a similar position in that we were utilizing Obamacare, but we didn't get any sort of, what's the word I'm looking for?
Credits or discounts or?
Yeah, exactly. I think they call them credits. You're right.
Actually, I wasn't using Obamacare. I was expecting to start using Obamacare. My wife works very, very hard. Unlike me, I just talk to people and make them money. It's cool. But she has a job with the school district, and she's very, very good at it. But it was becoming an option for her to not have to work, and now we're terrified that we can't.
You have to plan around that.
Yeah, we can't change. And she likes working, so it's not really that awful, but.
One day,
it's nice to
she
know.
won't be able to. That's the thing. Like, whether or not it's the immediate future, like, I worry about retirement.
Yeah.
I know I'm not going to see my Social Security, which is why I have a SEP and why I try my best to do, like, my own retirement planning and work with you on that, which, by the way, I need to make a contribution before tax day. So we'll talk about that offline.
Well, it's funny. Full disclosure, that's not why you were on the show. And I've never, ever told anyone, so just...
oh, interesting. Okay.
Well, it's not my place.
Yeah. But yeah, you're my fiduciary. You're my investment planner. Is that a good way to put it?
That's delightful. It would be...
Okay.
It would be, I don't know, at least bad form, if not a violation of trust for me to go around and name drop, because... There are
absolutely.
There are people who are well known in the secular community that use me, but I could never ever say who they are, and I'm okay with that. But I think I mentioned it. I had you on my show, and I think I might have. I'm sure. I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure. I have a terrible memory. But big secret, but it's kind of funny because no one else, that even people who are clients who have been on my show, have never mentioned it before.
That's funny. Well, maybe they weren't like, oh my gosh, I need to make a SEP contribution.
And for the listeners, SEP is self-employed IRA.
Yeah. It's like your own pension in case if you are a freelancer, you have your own business and you need to be able to invest, because of course you can do a Roth or a traditional, but they have limits and it's very hard to, I think, save enough. So it sort of takes the place of a 401 wonk, as I like to call it, if you're not employed.
Now, here's a quiz for you. Are you ready? Mm-hmm. What is the amount I recommend people per year save for retirement?
Ooh.
What percentage of their income?
I bet you recommend that we save 10% or more of our gross income, and I bet you most of your clients manage to save 10% of their net income.
Well, what I'm wondering right now is how many of my listeners are yelling at their phone, car, or headset.
Oh, am I wrong?
Something. Yeah.
Is it 20%?
It's 20.
Yeah, that's really hard.
I never said it was easy, but what I call on the show, and it's one of these things that it slipped out of my mouth one time, and now it's the listener's favorite, so they're waiting for me to say it. I'll just stall and make them wait. But saving 10% is the suck-ass minimum.
Exactly. Yeah, that's why I said 10% or more.
Yeah.
I figured it was like 10% and you'll live kind of a crappy life, but you won't be in the streets.
Well, the nice thing about 10%, it will actually work if you start when you're 22.
Exactly. And unfortunately, most people, myself included, started probably around 30. I started at 30, so at least I'm maybe a little ahead of the game. Some people don't start until they're in their 40s.
Yeah.
Which is like,
are you even
late.
30? I mean,
30's late, but it's not as late.
It's one of those things. It's hard to do, and I'll have people all the time saying, Phil, it's really hard to save 20%. And I will explain to them that I have spent my entire life trying to follow my own fucking advice.
Exactly. Yeah, especially when you're in a tax bracket and you have the type of position where I pay 10% off the top to my agent just out the gate, and then I'm paying close to 40% in taxes between federal, state, and city taxes. And so it's like out the door, I walk away with half of what I actually earn.
Is that where the phrase Californication came up?
Probably. And so then 20% of my gross would mean that I'm left with 30% of what I actually made that year, which is very difficult. So maybe 20% of net.
Yeah. I will have that 10% gross versus net argument with Christians sometimes. That's good fun.
Oh, yeah, because they tithe. I had to tithe when I was in the Mormon Church. It's really weird. They do it and they do tithing settlements. Like they have meetings with the bishop at the end of each month or maybe at the end of each year where they expect people to take in their statements.
Yeah,
and
the tax
prove
records
to them. Yeah, to prove that they put 10% in. And kids tithe too. I think it's just, kind of a dumb thing where they want them to get into the habit
That's
young.
right.
Obviously, we don't have
That's
tithing statements, but yeah, it's like putting 10% of your allowance and giving it to the church when you're like, I don't believe this bullshit.
The thing I don't understand
is,
is, I would think, for me anyway, if they said, even if I was religious, which is laughable, but if I showed up and they said, we need to see your tax statements to make sure you really gave a certain percentage, I'd be like, just the very fact that you asked, I'm out.
No, I agree. And I don't think most religions do that. I think it's
They
a very
do not.
weird. The Mormon faith is very bureaucratic in that way.
I love it. Well, on other extremes, sometimes I get weird, and if you didn't know this, but in 3 to 6 months, I'm moving closer to Chicago. And so I use one of those online services to, you put in your information and then the lenders compete for you kind of thing.
Yeah.
And boy, I mean, I hit send and 2 minutes later, I started getting phone calls. Mm-hmm. It was kind of spooky. Now, I'm talking to a few of them and we're working through it and I'm submitting documents and seeing how much they're going to qualify me for. But one of them, and I don't know that I should name them, Supreme Lending, they called and or emailed me 8 times within 8 business hours.
Yeah, that's insane.
And so finally I got, the second email I got was, we've been trying to reach you all day long. Hopefully we're not becoming annoying. And I responded back, you have become annoying. Please stop contacting me. And then the next day, another person called me and I said, take me off your list. And they're like, what? And I go, I don't know. I cannot be responsible for contributing to the success of an organization that behaves this way. This is the only power I have over you. So you're off the list.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, well, we're really sorry. And I go, well, just tell your bosses if they listen to you, which, a lot of companies don't. Well, you mentioned this TV thing a few minutes ago. What is that all about? What do you do on TV?
I do lots of stuff on TV. I mean, it kind of varies. My career is, when people ask, what do you do for a living? I think the umbrella term that I like to use is I'm a science communicator. So in general, I work very hard to do whatever I can do to improve science literacy and to translate kind of jargony, esoteric science to the public. And so I do that in a lot of different ways. Probably the bread and butter for me, the bulk of my income comes from work that I do on television. So mostly it's in the sciences, not always. And it really varies from year to year, from season to season, what I'm working on. So I do have one show that I tend to do every single year called SoCal Connected. and it's on KCET, which is a public television network here in Southern California, which means that it's completely viewer funded. We're not a PBS affiliate. Back in the day before I worked there, they were connected to PBS, but now they're independent. They're actually the largest independent public network in the country. And it's a news and public affairs show. I work as a journalist on the show. I kind of try to tell interesting stories about things that matter that are happening in the Southern California area. So sometimes they're science stories, they're environment stories, but other times they are more, like standard public affairs stories. So one week I might be working on a story about mountain lions that are threatened in Los Angeles, and the next week I might be working on a story about human trafficking. And it's really fulfilling. I love it. It does not pay very well because it is public television, but it's incredibly fulfilling. And we've been very lucky. We win many, many awards here at the local Emmys pretty much every year. We are honored, which is a great feeling because it seems like people recognize the work. And sometimes you don't always feel that way. So that's an ongoing thing I do.
The big question I have for you, are you still edgy?
Edgy.
I don't know.
Did you hear that episode of SGU?
I did.
It's so funny. Yeah, that's apparently derogatory now. Like, according to young people, if you call somebody edgy, they're a poser. So, no, I'm not edgy anymore. Damn it.
Well, I asked my kids, now they're getting old because they're 20 and 21, and I asked them about that when I heard that episode about the definition of edgy, and they're like, what are you talking about? So
yeah, so they might be a little too old because Steve's kids are teenagers.
Well, and we're also not on the coast.
That's true. They're in Connecticut, but his kids are much younger, like much younger. Yeah. So that could also be a big difference because I had never heard that either. So yeah, it's funny because it is true that sometimes if I'm working with a production company or a TV network, that's a way that they'll refer to me, right? Because I'm alternative, quote unquote, looking. I have, tattoos and piercings and things like that. Yet I am educated in the sciences and I have some authority in the sciences. So some networks, that's very appealing to them. And other networks, it scares the shit out of them. It just varies.
Yeah, when you give information now, since you're alternative, does that make those alternative facts?
Yeah, exactly. No, I never give alternative facts. But I'm trying to think of some of the things that I've done more recently. I worked on a show called America's Greatest Makers, which was on a TBS. It was a reality competition show kind of within the maker movement, which was pretty cool. Something I just did a couple weeks ago is it was more for the web. It was the first ever Facebook Live 360, and I did it for National Geographic Channel. And we went to the desert in the middle of Utah where there is the Mars Desert Research Station. There were 8 scientists who were holed up in this desert research station for the last, 90 days or something. And they're sort of opening the hatch for the first time and communicating with the public. And so I got to interview with them and do this really cool live stream that was like a virtual 360 experience. So when you're on your phone, you can turn it in any direction and explore the research station and see the space. Meanwhile, I'm interviewing them, and Neil deGrasse Tyson and a couple of other interesting people kind of chatted with us remotely. And so that's pretty cool, and it's still archived. So you can find that on National Geographic's Facebook channel and watch it. And I don't know, that was really fun.
You know what, the way you started describing that sounds like the great opening for a sci-fi movie.
Yeah. Middle of the desert in Utah.
It's just a harmless thing. The young TV reporter is going out to the desert to talk to these scientists, and they open the hatch, and what comes out on a live national feed, right?
You're so right. I'll tell you the probably the hardest part of that shoot was that it's so in the middle of nowhere that there was no good food. So that was like, we were in like a crappy motel, and I definitely did not get to eat well while I was there. Actually, no, there was a breakfast place across the street that was epic, but otherwise it was tough. Also, the street that you take, it's like a dirt path to get to the actual research station off of the main drag, off of the highway, was called Cow Dung Road.
Nice. Very classy. Very classy.
And then the last thing, I know you said shamelessly self-promote, so now I'm on a roll.
Yeah.
The thing that I did most recently that I'm actually really, really proud of, and it was a lot of fun, was in partnership with IBM and the New York Times, and there's an app that was developed to go along with the new movie Hidden Figures. And so I don't know if you've seen it yet, but I highly recommend it.
We saw that right away.
Good.
2 thumbs up from both me and my wife. An absolute joy to watch.
Absolutely. And really important historically and really inspiring. And so as the movie was getting ready to come out, because IBM, of course, was heavily involved with NASA at the time. They did the big mainframe computer, and they did a lot of work in helping to promote the movie. They actually, I don't know. I shouldn't say they came up with it because I have no idea where it first came to be. But there was an app that was being developed, and it's an augmented reality app. And the really cool thing is, like, wherever you are, you can find on your map using your GPS these quote unquote hidden figures. It's the 3 women featured in the film and then 7 other men and women, mostly people of color or individuals who were kind of oppressed, during their lifetime, who have really contributed to the STEM fields, the science, technology, engineering, and math fields. And you go up to, once you find where they are with this augmented reality app, you walk up to basically a statue. It's not a real statue, but it looks like a statue on your phone in real space using your GPS. And when you approach the statue of the figure, there is a really cool biography that is read out loud to you, and it's my voice. I read the biographies. I actually did a lot of research for them too, and rewrote them and put them in my voice. And yeah, so people can hear me talking about all of these really important figures from history if they download the app.
Now, is there just one statue, or are they scattered all over the country?
They're scattered all over the place. Yeah, it's not like you just have to find the one. They're clustered in a lot of different places. And that's not the only thing in the app. There's interviews with the women the actresses who played the women in the film. There's a lot of really cool content within the app, but that's the portion that I was involved with.
Well, it's really well done, and one of the things I love with a good movie is for, I don't remember how long it was, for 90 minutes or 2 hours, you really do forget you're in a movie. Mm-hmm. Well, of course, my listeners may not know, but I was once even on your show, and why don't you tell listeners what that is so they can go check out your podcast?
Oh, yeah, of course. I do a weekly podcast called Talk Nerdy. It's maybe about 2 or 3 years old now, maybe 130 some odd episodes. And it's a one-on-one with somebody who I find interesting. So, it's a predominantly a science podcast. I list it in iTunes as a science podcast, but we often do episodes about skepticism, secularism, civil liberties, human rights, and just other things that I find interesting. So yes, maybe more than 50% of my guests are scientists or science communicators, but there's always something new and interesting to learn. And it's very conversational. It's, we shoot the shit for an hour. Yeah. So you definitely feel like you're just having coffee with us. It's not,
well, and the thing that
or ivory towery.
I love about it, and clearly one of the things that I do on my show is I have a guest on, and we talk anywhere from sometimes 15 or 20 minutes, but that's unusual. More, it's 30, 50, sometimes an hour. So I do like the long form because you get all this detail, all this information. And your show, Talk Nerdy to Me, does that. And I never know where the specialty of your guest is going to be. And it's amazing. So if you like a show that's just, I don't know if eclectic's the right word, but very informative and a lot of variety, it's really fun to listen to.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, so I do that. I've been doing that podcast the longest, and then maybe last year, if I remember. No, it was the year before.
Yeah, I was going to say maybe a while.
Yeah, it was the year before. I joined the Skeptics Guide to the Universe as their 5th rogue. And so obviously if I don't know, maybe you've not heard of the SGU, but the SGU is probably one of the biggest, it's I think the second most popular science podcast, and it's really big in the skeptical community as well. They've been on for 11 years and they have a massive following. Do you know
it's
a lot of fun to hang with those
what kind of download
guys.
volume they get? Do you happen to have that knowledge?
Yeah, I think it's somewhere around 200,000 per episode.
Yeah, there's a couple atheistic-y shows that are close to that volume, but only a couple.
Yeah, I think they get the most. I mean, I say they still. I've got to work on it. I think we get the most downloads or listenership of any other science podcast other than like Star Talk.
Yeah, Star Talk. Well, you do have Science Friday. I'm sure that's way bigger, but
yeah, I guess you might be right, but I've never really compared. And I know that Skeptics Guide definitely held that position for quite a long time because they've been around for so long, right? Like 11 years, like since podcasting really became a thing. And so there are, of course, a few more that have kind of popped up since then. But a lot of people don't actually publish their stats. So it's really hard in the podcasting community to kind of know where you stand. And it also varies dramatically. Like on Talk Nerdy, it fluctuates a lot. But I don't have a huge listenership on Talk Nerdy. Like it's definitely something that it's very niche. I love it and I would love to expand it, but I'm not willing to do the things that are always recommended to me in order to expand it. Like have more celebrities on. I'm like, yeah, I don't want to do that.
Well, it's weird because obviously my show is a bizarre 1/3 finance, 2/3 atheism. And, people tell me that's not how podcasts work. And I'm like, I don't care. I'm going to do my thing. But it has grown way beyond my wildest fantasies. It's no Skeptic's Guide to the Universe, mind you. But it's so hard to predict. And from week to week, like you said, the volume fluctuates so much. Like, what caused that? Was it the title? Was it the guest? Was it the time of day that you released it? I don't know.
Yeah, it's really hard. It's really hard to know. It's a little like YouTube in that way, except it's a little less beholden to the YouTube algorithms because the RSS feed is like free. Anybody can download it if they want to. So it's about promotion, which is tough. They always say the best way to get more listeners and get more people to tune into your podcast is to get more people to know about your podcast. So going on other people's podcasts is one of the best ways to do that. It's not about trying to get people who don't already listen to podcasts to download yours. It's about tapping into people who already like podcasts and listen to them regularly and reminding them that you have a show and that it might be interesting to them.
Yeah, and that's like anything, when you're selling clothes, you appeal to people that are already buying clothes.
Exactly.
And I don't mean that to be funny. I mean women from the age of 25 to 50. Dudes don't buy anywhere near as much clothes on average. There's exceptions. I am not one of them.
And they don't have as many options available to them either. Yeah, women's fashion is a way bigger industry.
I have T-shirts older than my kids, and they're like, "Isn't it time for something new?" And I go, "Why? It works.
It still fits."
Yeah, well, I don't know about that. That's the
yeah, obviously. And I'm happy to have my little show and have my little listenership, and I really like my community of listeners. And I want to know what they think always. I like it when they reach out to me via Twitter and Facebook so we can interact. And I can, when they recommend guests to me, I like trying to get those guests on. It's fun.
Well, what do you have planned next? Are you going to write a book or something?
No.
You
know what I'm actually doing right now? I hate to announce it publicly, but I may have already said it publicly because I'm
just
not
friends
good
here.
at keeping secrets.
Don't worry about it.
No. It's just what if I don't get in? But I'm applying to grad school right now. I have a master's degree. I have an undergrad in psychology, a master's degree in neurobiology, and then I started a PhD in clinical neuropsych. I left my PhD after about a year to move. I was doing my PhD in New York. Everything else before that was in Texas, where I was born and raised. I left my PhD after about a year to move out here to LA to pursue a relationship and also just try to start from scratch and find a program that was better suited for me. And along the way, I kind of randomly fell into doing a lot of this media and TV work and never really got around to getting back to things. And now that I feel like my career is very much under control and I'm sort of managing my domain quite well and my goals are more clear and I have, agents that work with me and I know a lot of people in the industry and blah, 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 blah. I've decided that it might be a good time to go back to start a PhD again. And I found a really incredible program that allows you to do a lot of the work kind of via distance learning, which is great. So I don't have to go to campus but a few times a year. And otherwise, I get to watch the lectures online and write all of my papers and submit them remotely, so I can really balance my career with my education. So I'm hoping, applications are due in a couple of days, so I have to finish my essays. But I'm hoping that that it's a good fit and that it's something that I'm able to pursue moving forward.
Great. Well, is there anything specific we haven't covered that you want to go over?
Oh, gosh.
I know.
I don't know. I never go into these things with an agenda. So it's funny because I'll have guests on and I'll ask them the same question and they're like, yeah, we could talk about my book. And I'm like, oh, yeah.
Oh, you've got a book. That's nice.
But no, I don't have a book. There's not really much to plug right now because December, January are historically really slow in the TV industry. Like sometimes there might be something that's been planned for a while and you're working on it then, or there's something that comes out. But if you notice, a lot of new shows don't really come out at that time.
I've
Some
never
of them
noticed.
do.
I don't really watch TV, so.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah,
not
but
that
it's
way,
definitely
anyway.
a slow time in Hollywood. A lot of people are on vacation. So I'm not actively on a show right now. We'll see. SoCal Connected is going to come back soon, so that'll be exciting, and we'll see what other fun things pop up throughout the year. But really, just booking fun trips in order to give talks at skeptic conventions across the world, and just planning out what my year is going to look like, and enjoying my time on the show, and actually enjoying having a little bit of time off. I got super brutally ill about 2 weeks ago. And so it's been a slow and steady recovery from that. It's been nice to not have too much on my calendar so that I can focus on my health. I finally went back to the gym to see my trainer 4 days ago. And it was the first time I was able to go back in
I've heard of those
weeks.
places. Gyms.
You've heard of gyms?
Yeah. It's funny. My big goal, now I'm a few years older than you, my big goal is 3 hours of walking every day.
That's a good goal. I don't do that. Here in LA, nobody walks. It's terrible. We're such a car culture. I don't do 3 hours a day. I go to the gym every other day and I do an hour with my trainer. And then I try my best to do 45 minutes I have an elliptical machine in my garage. And so I watch 2 episodes of Parks and Recreation back to back, and that's my elliptical training. So it's about 4 miles and 45 minutes.
Yeah.
And that's my goal, is to work out 6 days a week, 3 days of cardio, 3 days of strength training at the gym. I'm not always amazing at it, but I usually am pretty consistent about it. Oh, I do have something that I'm very proud of myself for completing. This is a toot my own horn kind of situation, but I was hopelessly addicted to Coca-Cola for my whole life. I was one of those.
You scared me there for a second.
Yeah, I know. That's why we say Coca-Cola, because I don't say that in life. I say Coke, but I didn't want you to get the wrong idea. It was my vice. You know what I mean? I don't drink. I don't really do drugs. I did when I was younger, but I don't anymore. And when I say do drugs, I mean have fun and experiment. I was never a junkie or anything.
Yeah.
But I don't drink at all. It's not I just don't drink much. I never drink. And I am relatively healthy. I do have a little bit of a problem with cinnamon rolls. They are kind of my favorite food. But beyond that, I was drinking Coca-Cola all the time. I was one of those standard people I know there are people listening right now who drink a lot of soda. And in the back of your mind, you're this is so bad for me. I know it contributes to diabetes. I know it's the reason I can't lose that extra 5 or 10 pounds. I know that it's bad for my teeth, and it's just all the things that we know are bad, because I was drinking red can Coke, full sugar, full caffeine Coke, and hopelessly addicted for years and years and years. And I drank my last Coca-Cola on December 25th. So it's been over a month now since I've had one, and I was drinking 2 a day. So it's a big change. It's difficult as all hell, but I'm really proud of myself for it.
Well,
I've lost some weight from that.
I was kind of similar, although I didn't have any weight loss. Mine was Diet Pepsi. Mm-hmm. And I've been drinking that for 20 years. That was my drink of choice. And somewhere about a year or 2 ago, it just really started losing its appeal. And I don't know if they changed the formula, or sometimes when you age, your tastes change.
Yeah, that's true.
And now maybe if we're out somewhere, I'll get a Diet Pepsi, but I may not even finish it. It's just it just...
See, I wish that were the case with Coca-Cola. I wish I didn't crave it constantly. I wish it wasn't so refreshing and the burning when it goes down your throat and it's all you want. No, I'm still hopelessly addicted. Like, I know what that means. I was a cigarette smoker for many years, but I quit that now many years ago. And it was like one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. And I know what it means to be addicted to something and to abstain from it. I will always, maybe not always, but when I see somebody drinking like a nice, shiny, especially in the glass bottle, like a Mexican imported Coke in the glass bottle, and I'm like, oh, I want.
And it's really hot and humid, and it's got the beads of sweat dripping down.
But I know that I can't just have one, at least not right now. Maybe one day it'll be different than smoking. With smoking, I can't just have one. I'll start smoking again. So I have to just fully abstain. And I have for many, many, many years. And it's much easier now because when you quit smoking and you've been quit for quite a while, cigarette smoke is actually quite like noxious. Like it doesn't smell good when you walk by somebody who's smoking. And so I don't want them anymore. But with soda, that's something that people who aren't hopelessly addicted can just have one. It's like, oh yeah, once in a blue moon, I might have a soda like once a month or something, which to me is like still kind of hard to process. But maybe one day I can just enjoy a Coke and know that it doesn't mean that I'm going to have another one and another one. We'll see.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that smoke thing. I don't know what it is, but I have issues with smells. Cigarette smoke has never even come close to appealing to me. It is one of the most vile things. And I can walk into a room, or someone can walk into a room, and I can look at them and they're still 15, 20 feet away. And I said, you just went out and smoked. And they're like, how did you know?
Me too.
Me too. You brought a cloud
with
you.
It's very strong. Yeah, and I can smell it. But I think for a lot of people, and this, I feel guilty because I'm like, I'm a science communicator. Now I'm going to make a claim that I actually can't really back up with statistics. But I could go and look it up and follow up with you. I think a lot of people who start smoking when they're young, and they have been around cigarettes. Their parents smoked, or their peer group smoked, and they started to develop a taste for it or develop a smell for it. And so it wasn't quite as offensive then. I would be interested to see what percentage of people pick up smoking for the first time when they're in their 40s or 50s. I just sincerely doubt that that's very common, unless it's during some sort of crisis situation.
Yeah, I'm sure it's quite a young thing. But
exactly.
It's funny,
and so
though,
you're so right. Like now, the idea of picking up a cigarette is disgusting to me. But when I was a kid, my mom smoked. I was around it all the time. I was so used to the smell that it wasn't like I hadn't developed it being a turnoff.
No, see, my dad smoked when I was really little, and I hated it then with a passion. It
really,
although a good campfire, which is
does smell good, yeah.
It's
well, wait, did your dad smoke inside? Because my mom never smoked inside.
Not so much. I mean, no, not really. But I mean, he would go down to the VFW, and it was the classic beer in one hand and cigarette in another. And see, we would go there and we'd walk in and just there's 40 dudes smoking in this little room, and of course in the ceiling gross. it's got the smoke eater, but that doesn't work.
It doesn't work. Yeah, that's gross. It's like the smoking rooms at some of the airports. I think Atlanta has one, and it's disgusting. They're like little glass boxes full of cigarette smoke.
I didn't know they had. I mean, it makes sense, but I didn't know they had such thing. Now, my big concern is usually when I'm in an airport that they have chapels.
Yeah, they have chapels
like,
too. They have chapels and smoking.
Why are we using state funding to make a chapel in a community building? But whatever.
Do they? It's not funded by a local church.
Well, no,
or anything?
I mean it's in the airport. The airport is owned almost always by a government agency. So unless someone's paying rent to use the chapel,
true. But maybe they are. I don't know.
Maybe. I mean, I'm waiting for the have a humanist center in a big airport and see, it's just one of those things that we kind of just assume and we let it happen.
Everybody's religious. It's true. Yeah, there's that assumption. And I think that I try not to paint things with too broad a brush. It is a huge problem, obviously, that there's kind of the assumption at the governmental level and at any sort of authority level that everybody's religious. And so being inclusive means being non-denominational, right? In many ways, that's what the First Amendment is really about. It's about not honoring or kind of favoring any one religion over the other. And of course, we interpret that as meaning also a lack of religion, which is the right interpretation, and kind of keeping those things separate. But I wonder, it probably just depends on who's running it and how progressive they are. I would not be surprised if you went to LAX, if their chapel was like, if you kind of looked up some sort of mission statement, if they wouldn't say that they were a non-denominational and non-religious chapel, like that you could come as a secular individual.
It's a place of peace and harmony.
Yes, exactly. It's like a quiet place that's a little bit where there's like an extra level of respect expected out of the horrible, gross masses at an airport.
Peace and harmony like religion.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, yeah, exactly. It's just, I try not to be too cynical about, I'm with you. I'm fervently against constitutional abuses, and I'm really fervently against kind of the Christian privilege that we see in our country. I am an atheist of atheists. Like, I have no qualms using that label because I absolutely am a non-believer. But I also try to pick my battles, and I think that there are some things that are a little bit more important. Like, there are real abuses that happen that we should be really focused on. And then there are things where it's kind of like nitpicking, where I'm less concerned about it. But I also understand the opposite argument, which is I don't like to see any of this stuff normalized. The problem is it's not like we are seeing it become normalized. It's been normalized for so long. We're slowly but surely trying to undo the normalization of it, which to me is a little bit of a different approach.
Absolutely. Well, Cara, I've run out of things to ask. We could come up with something new.
I guess we've done our job, huh?
Yeah. You know, it's getting 50 minutes plus, so I'm good with that. So thank you so much for taking this time, and I really appreciate you coming on the Phil Ferguson Show.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, you. It's me, Sarah Silverman. You know, lately I've noticed a lot of really sad, really long commercials on TV with, like, grossly sick, emaciated people from all over the world. And it turns out they look that way because they don't have food. And I know what you're thinking. If you don't like it, Silverman, TiVo past it. I did. You still see them. Especially because, like, I have a 48-inch plasma high-def TV. So every devastating image is in, like, brilliant, crisp, vivid, like they're in my apartment, you know. So how do I get these people out of my apartment, basically? And I think I figured it out. Like, all I have to do is end world hunger. And then I'm like, okay, how are you going to end world hunger? And then it hit me. Sell the Vatican, feed the world. Think about it. We need a hero, and who is more primed to be our hero than the Pope? He's literally a caped crusader. What is the Vatican worth, like $500 billion? This is great. Sell the Vatican, take a big chunk of that money, build a gorgeous condominium for you and all of your friends to live in, all the amenities, swimming pool, tennis court, water slide. And with the money left over, feed the whole fucking world. You preach to live humbly, and I totally agree. So now maybe it's time for you to move out of your house that is a city. On an ego level alone, you will be the biggest hero in the history of ever. And by the way, any involvement in the Holocaust, bygones. I know some of you out there are like, well, why don't those bums get a job like the rest of us? Well, did you know that the average Arby's employee in Ethiopia only gets paid nothing an hour because they don't have one. They don't have one. The bottom line is this. If you sell the Vatican and you take that money and you use it to feed every single human being on the planet, you will get crazy pussy. All the pussy. And I don't mean literally. That might not be your cup of tea. I don't know what your version of all the pussy is. But you'll get all the pussy. Amen.
You're listening to The Phil Ferguson Show.
Well, I trust you enjoyed that interview. Just a couple more things before we wrap up the show today. Quick note, we had another 5-star review in iTunes from Beeline51. The podcast combines two of my favorite subjects. Phil has a down-to-earth style, has interesting guests, and his investment advice warms the heart of this bogglehead. Thanks for everything, Phil. In case you didn't know, boggleheads are the name of people who follow the philosophies of investments of John Bogle. I guess it's Bogleheads. He's the guy that founded Vanguard Mutual Fund Company, and every once in a while writes more books. I think he's pushing 80, but been very, very influential in the investment world, and he is the author of my favorite book, the book that I call my Bible, Common Sense on Mutual Funds. So if you want to learn a lot, treat it like a textbook. It's not a mystery novel. You're not going to sit down and read it in 4 hours, but go through it page by page, take notes, look up words if you don't know what they are, and spend months on it. I mean, we're talking about your lifetime of investing, so don't be afraid of learning and realizing it's going to take some effort. The other thing is an update on my travel plans. I am doing a speaking tour at the end of March into early April, and that will be in the New England area. It'll be around D.C. and Philadelphia, York, and even one stop in New Jersey. So wanted to give you some details. If you are in that area, I plan to fly in on the 29th of March, and I will probably visit some friends and or family the 29th and maybe the 30th. On the 31st, I'm hoping I can do sightseeing in Washington, D.C., because that evening on the 31st, I will be visiting and giving a talk to the Washington Area Secular Humanists, and that is in Rockville, Maryland. And I thought, it's at the Executive Office Building Auditorium, so hopefully you can find it from that. I thought I had the address here handy, but I don't. So that's going to be in Rockville, Maryland, and that is on the 31st. On April 1st, April Fool's Day, I will be in York, Pennsylvania, and I'll have more details about that pretty soon. And then the next day, April 2nd, on Sunday, I have 2 talks. The first town is Allentown, Pennsylvania. In Allentown, I will be speaking to the Lehigh Valley Humanists, so hopefully you can join for that. That is going to be at 522 West Maple Street in Allentown at the Bradbury Sullivan LGBT Center. So that sounds like great fun to be in Allentown. And after Allentown, I am going to drive over to South Jersey, the South Jersey Humanists, and I will be giving a talk in the city of Egg Harbor. I guess it's Egg Harbor City in New Jersey. The address is 75 Pomona Road, and so hopefully you can join us for that. I believe that is a Unitarian Universalist church. So we'll be giving that talk there to the South Jersey Humanists. That, again, is April 2nd. On April 3rd, I will be visiting my good friend Margaret Downey in Philadelphia, and her organization is the Free Thought Society. That will be, again, April 3rd, 7 p.m. in the Ludington Library, 5 South Bryn Avenue, I don't know if I'm saying that right. I'm sure it's wrong, Pennsylvania. But hopefully, if you're in the area, you can figure out how I slaughtered that and still come visit. So my apologies to any locals if I've offended your sensibilities. So that is my speaking tour. And, of course, on the 4th, I will probably do sightseeing in Philadelphia and go see some cool stuff there. I heard they have some historical sites. I'll have to look them up. I'm just joking. I've been there before. Great city. Going to have a wonderful time doing that. So if you have questions, for the clients, I will have a computer and I will be available from time to time throughout that trip, but it may be a little harder to get a hold of me. So please forgive me and, give me a little extra leniency if I don't respond right away to your emails. So once again, that wraps up our show, and I am delighted that you listened to the show, and I'm so happy that so many people have shared the show. If you have any questions, you can email me, phil@polarisfinancialplanning.com, and I hope to see you somewhere soon. Ciao.